Hello and welcome to this 12-lesson e-course or resource guide on how to give your child a classical Christian education at home. I'm Dennis Oliver Woods, headmaster at Kingsway Classical Academy, the world's first online classical Christian school, grades 7 through 12. Our lesson objective today is to use Thomas Edison to show how the homeschool environment can unleash unparalleled creativity in the lives of its students. The public school, by design, stifles creativity, instead channeling students into conformity to the group and the objectives of the state. Upon first impression, one might imagine that homeschool would stifle creativity. After all, a child is isolated from many outside influences. He has connections only with his immediate family and only limited peer interaction. That's a surefire recipe for boredom, stagnation, and a sterile imagination, right? Well, try telling that to Thomas Alva Edison sometime. Thomas Edison, you see, was another in a long line of famous homeschooled children in American history. And where did that get him? Well, Edison's invention factory in Menlo Park, New Jersey applied for over 400 patents a year, and his fingerprints are on most of the things we take for granted in today's world. It has been said that Thomas Edison invented the 20th century. The electric light bulb is probably the most well known, but Edison's inventions included the stock ticker, the phonograph, the movie camera, and man-made rubber, among many others. Edison's initial invention factory, which harnessed the talents of 60 other inventors, was perhaps his greatest invention. The serendipitous creativity of the group was so productive that they even advertised to accept inventions for hire. You name it and we'll invent it. In 1887, the lab was expanded to 14 buildings, the largest the size of 3 football fields. It had to be big because by this time Edison had 5,000 inventive employees. Here Edison promised, humbly, a major invention every 10 days and a big thing every 6 months or so. Well, in 1876, Scientific Monthly described it as follows. On the ground floor as you enter is a little front office from which a small library is partitioned off. Next is a large square room with glass cases filled with models of his inventions. In the rear of this is the machine shop, completely equipped and run with a 10-horsepower engine. The upper story occupies the length and breadth of the building, 100 by 25 feet, is lighted by windows on every side, and is occupied as a laboratory. The walls are covered with shelves full of bottles containing all sorts of chemicals. Scattered through the rooms are tables covered with electrical instruments, microscopes, spectroscopes, etc. In the center of the room is a rack full of galvanic batteries. Enrolled at school at age 7, Thomas Edison was declared dull and addled by his teacher because he asked so many questions. After 3 months of harassment from his instructor, Edison had had enough and he stormed home. Nancy Edison decided to homeschool her son, and virtually all of his childhood learning occurred at home. Both parents were prodigious readers who not only read to him, but encouraged Thomas to read books that were of interest to him. These included Dickens, Shakespeare, Gibbon, and other classics. At age 9, Mrs. Edison gave the boy an elementary science book, which proved to be a fateful decision. Soon Thomas had outpaced the experiments in the book and was purchasing chemicals and collecting all sorts of items and ingredients to conduct his own research in his basement laboratory. His father actually discouraged this activity, tried to get Thomas back into simple book reading, probably concerned that his son might blow the house up with one of his chemical concoctions. From his parents, Edison learned that education was an active process for which the individual must take responsibility and that it lasts a lifetime. Edison and Einstein were both serious innovators, as seen here. One of Edison's employees, Henry Ford, left in 1896 to launch a spin-off horseless carriage company. The two men remained close friends and lived in houses adjacent to each other in Detroit, Michigan. Edison's parents knew that the best way to encourage learning was to let the child pursue his natural interests, not be bound by the rigid curriculum of the traditional classroom. But another of Edison's employees, Nikola Tesla, was highly critical of Edison's lack of research theory and structure. Nikola Tesla was Edison's most gifted but contentious employee. Tesla felt that Edison should have worked smarter, not harder. Quote, if he had a needle to find in a haystack, he would not stop to reason where it was most likely to be, but would proceed at once with the feverish diligence of a bee to examine straw after straw until he found the object of his research. I was almost a sorry witness of such doings, knowing that a little theory and calculation would have saved him 90% of his labor. End quote. Well, that debate will probably rage forever, but for now, by the sheer volume of his accomplishment, Edison's dogged persistence and practicality seems to have overshadowed Tesla's uncompromising theoretical approach. Well, who else was homeschooled? Next time I'll share an example of a famous contemporary who was also taught at home. All right, let's take a quiz on what you just learned. Question number 1. Thomas Edison's greatest invention was the invention factory. True or false? Question 2. It is usually best to let a child pursue their natural interests in the homeschool. True or false? 3. Some folks say that Thomas Edison invented the 20th century. True or false? Because of his natural aptitude in science, Edison had little interest in the classics. And number 5, Thomas Edison spent all of his time with his nose in a book. True or false? Let's look at the answers. First of all, Thomas Edison's greatest invention was the invention factory. That's true. Question 2, it's usually best to let a child pursue their natural interests in the homeschool. And that's true. Number 3, some folks say that Thomas Edison invented the 20th century. True. Number 4, because of his natural aptitude in science, Edison had little interest in the classics. False. And number 5, Thomas Edison spent all of his time with his nose in a book. False. He sought to apply his knowledge in the laboratory. So that's it for Lesson 2, and we'll see you tomorrow on Lesson 3, Lord willing.